What would you do if the only person who ever loved you took a silver bullet meant for you? When a forbidden love between a fragile healer and the ruthless alpha king shatters the laws of their kind, destiny bleeds in silver. One sacrifice will change their fates forever, and one king will burn the world rather than let her die. The forest was on fire, not with flames, but with screams, gunshots, and the silver glint of death. The moon hung low, torn behind clouds, and the scent of burnt fur and blood filled the night. Aveline stumbled through the smoke, her thin frame soaked in crimson, her heartbeat wild as the hunters closed in. Somewhere beyond the chaos, she saw him, Rydian, the Alpha King. His golden eyes cut through the shadows like molten suns. He was surrounded, his wolf fighting to keep the ambush away. "Run!" he had roared, but she didn't. She couldn't. She saw the silver flash, one bullet and straight for his heart. And before reason could whisper no, Aveline leapt between him and death. The silver burned through her chest. The world went silent. Rydian caught her before she fell. His hands trembled, something no one had ever seen from the unbreakable Alpha King. "No, no, no, no!" His voice broke as he pressed his palm over the wound, the scent of silver and blood poisoning the air. "You foolish girl," he growled, rage and grief twisting in his throat. She smiled weakly, her lips pale. "You were never meant to die," she whispered. "Not tonight." Her voice cracked, each word a struggle. The silver seared her skin like fire, spreading fast. The hunters had fled, but their victory echoed in the stillness. Rydian looked up at the sky, his chest heaving. He didn't care about the war anymore. He only cared about her. He tore his shirt, pressed it against her wound, but the silver wouldn't stop burning. "Stay with me," he whispered, his breath hot with panic. "I command you to stay." His command voice, the same one that bent packs and armies to his will, trembled now. She laughed softly, a sound made of pain and surrender. "You can't command life," she whispered. Her eyelids fluttered like fading candlelight. Rydian's throat tightened. Around them, wolves gathered silently, their eyes reflecting sorrow. The strongest of kings was kneeling in the dirt, helpless before a dying Omega. The air grew cold. He pressed his forehead to hers, his breath shaking. "You took my bullet, then I'll take your pain." And then it happened. He bit his wrist and pressed it to her lips. "Drink," he demanded. His blood, royal and ancient, carried power forbidden to share. If she drank, it could save her or destroy her. Aveline hesitated, trembling. "Rye," she gasped. "If I live, they'll kill me." His eyes burned brighter. Let them try. He pushed his blood against her mouth, his voice breaking. "You will not die, do you hear me?" The moon broke free from the clouds, silver light spilling across them. Her lips parted. She drank. For a moment, the world stopped spinning. Her veins lit like wildfire, her heart convulsing as the Alpha's power fused with her fragile soul. The forest fell silent. Then, Aveline screamed. Her body arced, her eyes glowing with light that didn't belong to her. The ground quaked. Rydian held her, tears cutting through the blood on his face. When her body finally went limp, he froze. For one endless second, there was no sound, no breath, no heartbeat. Then, her eyes opened. But they weren't brown anymore. They were gold, his color, his mark, his curse. Rydian's heart thundered as the reality hit him. In saving her,
He had bound her soul to his own, a forbidden bond between an Omega and a king. The moment would change everything. And somewhere in the darkness, unseen eyes watched, whispering that the curse had begun.
Days before the forests burned, Aveline's life was nothing but quiet servitude. She lived in the healer's hut on the edge of the Shadow Vale Pack, where the smell of crushed herbs and smoke lingered in the air. She wasn't a warrior nor a noble, just an orphaned Omega. Small, soft-spoken, invisible. Every dawn she gathered dew-lace leaves, mixing salves for wounds she didn't cause and potions for warriors who never said thank you. The pack called her the Ghost Girl because she moved like wind, seen but never felt. But that morning, the wind shifted. The Alpha King was returning from battle. His victories were legend, his wrath feared. And when his army marched through the valley that day, the ground itself seemed to bow. Aveline had no idea her fate was about to change forever. The first time she saw him, he wasn't on a throne or in armor. He was bleeding. The mighty Rydian collapsed in front of the healer's hut, an arrow jutting from his side. The pack's healers froze. None dared touch him without permission. But Aveline didn't think. She ran to him. "He's losing blood!" she cried, her hands already stained crimson. The others gasped, horrified that an Omega would touch the king. But his golden eyes snapped open, touching hers in a moment that silenced everything. Power hummed in the air, ancient and alive. She pressed herbs against the wound, whispering old healing words taught by her late mother. His breathing steadied, his body trembling under her touch. "You shouldn't be near me," he murmured, voice low, dangerous. "Then stop bleeding," she replied softly. His lips curved. It was the first time anyone had dared talk to him that way. Over the next days, Aveline tended to him in secret. His wounds healed, but her heart began to ache in ways she didn't understand. He would watch her in the candlelight, studying the way her hands moved, gentle, unafraid. She never looked at him like a king. She looked at him like a man. That unsettled him more than any war. "Why do you not bow?" he asked one night. "Because you bleed like anyone else," she answered. He had no reply for that. Outside, wolves howled under a red moon, whispering of omens. Inside, silence wrapped them both, heavy, with something unspoken. When he finally stood to leave, she felt something tear quietly inside her. A feeling she couldn't name yet, but it would soon define every breath. But peace never lasts in a kingdom built on blood. Rumors began to spread. The pack whispered that the king was visiting the healer's hut too often, that perhaps the fragile Omega had bewitched him. The High Council disapproved. They warned Rydian that affection for a servant was weakness, a risk that could shatter his authority. Yet every warning only drew him closer to her. When he was near her, he wasn't Alpha. He was Rydian, a man fighting the beast within. "If they knew," she whispered one night as he brushed a lock of hair from her face, "they would destroy us both." He looked at her then, eyes glowing faintly gold. "Let them come," he said. "They'd have to go through me first." That was the night their doom was sealed, though neither of them knew it yet. The next dawn brought thunder and betrayal. Hunters from a rival clan crossed into Shadow Vale territory, carrying silver bullets, illegal, fatal to any wolf. The council accused Aveline of being the distraction that weakened their borders. She was dragged from her hut, her hands bound, her name spat like a curse. Rydian came too late. By the time he arrived, they had already decided her punishment: exile. She stood in the rain, trembling but unbroken, when he stepped through the crowd. "Unbind her," he ordered. "She's done nothing wrong." His command voice shook the air. No one moved. Then he met her eyes, and something unspoken passed between them. Fair,
longing, defiance. She whispered, "You shouldn't fight for me." And he answered softly, "Then why does it feel like I was born to?" The crowd gasped. The king had chosen his side. And from that moment on, the kingdom began to fracture.
The moon had barely risen when Ridian stormed into the high hall, his cloak dripping with rain, his golden eyes blazing with fury. Every elder in the council bowed their heads, but none dared meet his gaze. "You accused an innocent healer of treason?" he thundered, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "You condemned her to die for your fear?" Elder Varric, the oldest of them, stood with trembling hands. "She's an Omega, your majesty. Their kind tempts fate. Weakness spreads like rot." Ridian's growl shook the hall. "Weakness," he spat. "She faced death with more courage than any of you." The silence that followed was suffocating. No one had ever seen their king this unhinged, this human. "If any of you lay a hand on her again," he said quietly, "you'll answer to me, not the moon goddess." And with that, he turned, the sound of his boots striking stone like thunder. He didn't look back. Aveline sat alone in the healer's hut, staring at the door she feared would never open again. Her wrists still bore the faint marks of the ropes that bound her. The rain outside had turned to snow, quiet and relentless. When the door burst open, she jumped. Ridian stood there, soaked, furious, breathing like he'd fought the wind itself. She opened her mouth to speak, but he crossed the distance in 2 strides, cupping her face in his hands. "You're safe now," he said, though his voice cracked. "I won't let them touch you again." She trembled beneath his touch, torn between gratitude and dread. "You've made enemies," she whispered, "for me." His eyes softened, the storm in them dimming just enough to show the man beneath the crown. "They can take my throne, but they'll never take you." For days, the pack buzzed with rumors. The Alpha King was no longer attending council meetings. He had moved his quarters closer to the healer's hut, claiming it was to monitor her safety. But everyone knew the truth. They saw the way he looked at her, the way his commands softened when she entered a room. To love below your rank was to defy the ancient code, the law that had kept their kind alive for centuries. Yet every glance, every brush of his hand against hers drew them closer to the edge of ruin. One night, as they sat beside the hearth, Aveline whispered, "If the goddess hears of this." He smiled faintly. "Then let her judge me for loving what she made." His hand brushed hers. The bond between them pulsed like fire beneath their skin, invisible but undeniable. The council began to plot. Behind closed doors, whispers turned into schemes. If the king refused to abandon his forbidden love, they would make the choice for him. Elder Varric contacted the hunters, mercenaries who trafficked in silver. "The king's heart has grown weak. Cut it out before it dooms us all." They agreed for the right price. The plan was simple. Strike during the full moon, when the king would be most powerful and therefore least guarded. But one councilwoman hesitated, Leora, the youngest, who had once been Aveline's friend. She overheard the plan and fled through the night, her breath ragged, her heart pounding. By dawn, she reached the healer's hut. "They're coming for him," she gasped. Aveline's eyes widened. "When?" Leora's voice broke. "Tonight." Ridian didn't hesitate. He ordered his guards to double the patrol, but deep down he knew it wouldn't be enough. The traitors were wolves, his own kin, and they knew how to hide their scent. He turned to Aveline, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "If they come, you run." She shook her head fiercely. "I won't." His jaw tightened. "That's an order." Tears glimmered in her eyes, but she didn't reply. As the moon began to rise, its light spilling like silver fire across the valley, the pack braced for war. Aveline stood at the window, watching shadows move in the tree line. She didn't know yet that by sunrise, her body would be bathed in blood and Ridian's heart would break in 2. The full moon rose like a bleeding wound in the sky. The wind was restless at night, carrying the scent of rain and iron through the trees. Aveline couldn't sleep. She stood by the window, fingers pressed against the cool glass, watching the forest sway in eerie rhythm. The healer's hut was too quiet, too still. Every instinct in her body screamed that something was wrong. Behind her, Rydian sat sharpening his blade, his shirt discarded, his chest marked with scars that told the story of 1,000 battles. "You should rest," he said without looking up. "So should you," she replied softly. He gave a short, humorless laugh. "Kings don't rest," he said, "not when the wolves are already at the door." He looked at her then, and for a heartbeat, the world shrank to the space between them. "If anything happens tonight," he murmured, "you run toward the eastern ridge. Promise me." She hesitated. "And if you fall?" His eyes darkened. "Then I'll rise again until you're safe." The attack came without warning. One moment, silence. The next, a howl, sharp and desperate, slicing through the night. Rydian was on his feet before she could blink. "Stay inside," he barked, grabbing his sword. But Aveline was already moving, her healer's instincts stronger than her fear. She snatched her satchel of herbs and rushed after him. Outside, chaos exploded. The pack was under siege. Silver-tipped arrows rained from the trees, hissing as they struck flesh. Wolves collapsed mid-shift, their howls turning to screams. Rydian shifted mid-leap, his wolf form immense, black fur gleaming, fangs flashing in the moonlight. He tore through the attackers with primal fury, each motion fluid, lethal. Aveline ducked behind fallen logs, dragging wounded wolves to cover, her hands trembling as she poured healing salves into gashes. "Where's the king?" one gasped. "Holding the line," she said breathlessly. But then she saw it, a glint of metal in the distance, a sniper. Her breath caught. The hunter stood on the ridge, cloaked in shadow, his rifle glinting under the moonlight. A silver bullet, loaded, aimed straight at Rydian's chest. She screamed his name, but the battle drowned her voice. He was too far, too focused. In that frozen heartbeat, her body moved before her mind did. She sprinted into the open, her feet barely touching the ground. Arrows sliced past her, grazing her arms, but she didn't stop. The air burned in her lungs. "Rydian!" she cried again. He turned just as the rifle fired. The silver bullet cut the night in two, hissing like death itself. Without thinking, Aveline threw herself into its path. The impact knocked her back, her body twisting mid-air before crashing into the dirt. For a moment, everything went white. The battle stopped. The air was thick with disbelief. Rydian's roar shattered the silence, a sound so raw it split the hearts of every wolf who heard it. He tore through the last hunter, his claws dripping silver and blood, then fell to his knees beside her. "No," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Not you." The bullet's glow pulsed faintly under her ribs, the metal burning through her veins. Her eyes fluttered open, glazed with pain. "You're alive," she breathed, smiling weakly. "Good." He pressed his forehead to hers, his breath trembling. "You shouldn't have done that." "I couldn't let them take you," she whispered. "The world needs you." His tears mixed with her blood as he cradled her closer. Around them, the battlefield went silent. Wolves bowed their heads, their king breaking in front of them. Lightning tore across the sky, the storm breaking open. Rydian looked up at the heavens, rain mixing with tears on his face. "Moon goddess," he roared. "Take me, not her." But the only answer was thunder. Aveline's breathing grew shallow. The silver spread fast, veins glowing faintly under her skin. "Don't leave me," he begged. "Please." She reached up, her fingers brushing his cheek.
You once told me the goddess made me for a reason. Maybe this was it." Her hand fell limp. The light in her eyes began to fade. Radian's chest heaved as despair turned to rage. His wolf surged forward, wild and uncontrollable. "No!" he howled, slamming his fist against the earth. The ground trembled, the forest quaked. And then, from somewhere deep inside him, an ancient instinct awoke. Something darker, older, forbidden. He bit his wrist, pressed it to her lips, and gave her his blood. "Drink," he commanded. "I forbid you to die." The night held its breath. Her body convulsed, the silver battling the alpha's power. Sparks of gold light danced along her skin as the two forces collided. Death and life locked in violent war. Radian held her tighter, whispering her name like a prayer. "Come back to me, Aveline. Please." Then for a moment there was silence. And when her eyes opened again, they weren't brown. They were molten gold, glowing like his. Every wolf in the field bowed in fear and awe. The forbidden bond had been sealed in blood. The alpha's power flowed through her veins. Radian stared, trembling. He'd saved her, but at what cost? In the distance, the clouds shifted, and the moon turned red. The war wasn't over. It had just begun.
Dawn crept slowly over the valley, turning the battlefield into a graveyard of ash and blood. Smoke curled from the trees, and the earth still trembled faintly from the power unleashed hours ago. Aveline lay in the center of it all, the silver wound on her chest sealed, though a faint shimmer still pulsed beneath her skin. Her body was unnaturally still. Radian hadn't moved from her side all night. His cloak was torn, his face streaked with soot, and his eyes, those golden eyes, were dull with exhaustion. The healers stood back, whispering in fear. "She's not one of us anymore," one murmured. "The alpha's blood has marked her." Radian's head snapped up. "She lives because I willed it. Not one of you will touch her." But even as he spoke, a flicker of unease passed through him. He could feel her heartbeat inside his own chest, echoing in rhythm. Their souls had fused, and the bond was unlike anything he'd ever known. When Aveline stirred, the world seemed to hold its breath. Her eyes opened slowly, gold glinting where brown once was. The wolves around her drew back instinctively, baring their teeth in confusion and awe. She blinked, disoriented, her voice soft but strange, like two notes overlapping. "Radian?" she whispered. Relief flooded his face as he took her hands. "You're alive," he said, the words almost breaking him. "I told you I wouldn't let you go." But when she sat up, she gasped, clutching her chest. "It burns," she cried. He pressed a hand against her heart, and for a heartbeat, his own chest throbbed in pain. Their bond pulsed violently, sending shockwaves through both of them. "It's the alpha's essence," he explained quietly. "It's inside you now." Her lips trembled. "Then what am I?" His silence was the only answer she needed. By midday, the council arrived, their faces carved from stone. Elder Varric stepped forward, voice shaking with barely contained fury. "What have you done?" he demanded. Radian stood tall, his arm around Aveline. "I saved her." "You cursed her," Varric hissed. "You've broken the sacred law, shared your blood with an Omega." The other elders murmured, their fear sharp as a blade. "Do you realize what you've created?" Radian's jaw clenched. "A miracle," he said. But even as he spoke, Aveline felt the shift in the air. The wolves nearby were restless, their instincts tangled between loyalty and fear. Her new presence radiated dominance, subtle but undeniable. When she glanced at one of the soldiers, his wolf bowed involuntarily. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "She commands," someone whispered, "without rank, without lineage." And in that instant, Rydian realized the truth. By saving her, he had made her something no wolf had ever been before. That night, the pack's unity fractured. Half swore loyalty to their king and his mysterious bonded mate. The others whispered of blasphemy, of a curse that would bring ruin upon them all. Aveline stood at the edge of the fireplace's light, watching the flames twist. The golden reflection in her eyes made her look almost inhuman. Rydian approached quietly. "They'll come for you. For us." She turned to him, voice steady. "Then we'll face them." He studied her face, the soft lines now sharpened with new strength. "You're changing," he said softly. "You feel it too, don't you?" She hesitated. "I can hear things," she whispered. "The heartbeat of the pack, your thoughts, even the earth's pain." He stepped closer, his hand brushing her cheek. "Then learn to control it, because soon they'll call you a monster." In the shadows beyond the firelight, the council plotted again. Elder Varric's voice was cold as ice. "He's bound himself to her. If we can't kill the girl, we'll have to sever the bond." Leora, the younger councilwoman, frowned. "You'll destroy him too. Then so be it. Better one dead king than a pack lost to her power." He turned toward the darkened forest where the hunters waited. "Bring more silver and aim for the heart that beats twice." Meanwhile, inside the camp, Aveline's body trembled with unease. She could feel the whisper of danger, faint as a shadow at her back. She turned toward the forest, her golden eyes glowing softly. "Something's coming," she murmured. Rydian looked toward the horizon, jaw tightening. "Then let it come. They wanted a monster? Let them meet her." The days that followed blurred together like a fever dream. Aveline's body no longer felt like her own. Her senses sharpened beyond comprehension. She could hear heartbeats through walls, smell emotions like perfume, and feel the moon's pull in her blood. At night, she woke screaming, her veins glowing faint gold beneath her skin. The bond with Rydian had fused deeper than flesh. It was soul deep. When he was near, her heart calmed. When he left, pain rippled through her chest like wildfire. Rydian refused to show weakness before his warriors, but every night he sat beside her, silent, watching the girl who had once been human become something else. One evening she caught him staring. "You're afraid of me," she said softly. He didn't deny it. "I'm afraid of what they'll make you become." She looked down, tears glistening. "Then teach me to be something better." Training began at dawn. The forest became their sanctuary and battleground. Rydian taught her control, the art of channeling her strength, of silencing the chaos that threatened to consume her. "Listen to your instincts," he said as they sparred beneath the rising sun, "but make them obey you." She moved faster than he expected, every motion precise, her senses uncanny. When he lunged, she dodged before he moved, as if she'd read his thoughts. "You're inside my head," he murmured, breathless. "No," she said softly, "you're inside mine." For a fleeting moment, their eyes met, gold mirroring gold, and the world seemed to vanish. The bond between them pulsed with something more than magic, something dangerously close to love. But before the feeling could bloom, a sound broke the moment. The wind shifted. A howl echoed from the hills. Not one of their pack. The hunters had returned. The attack came swiftly. Silver-tipped spears sliced through the trees, embedding into trunks with violent force. Evelyn flinched as one whistled past her ear. Radiant grabbed her hand. They found us. Stay behind me. But she could feel the pull of her instincts, wild, unrestrained. No, she said, eyes glowing brighter. I can protect you. Before he could stop her, she stepped forward, her palms trembling. The air shimmered around her, golden light radiating outward in waves. The first hunter aimed his weapon, but the silver melted mid-air, disintegrating into dust before reaching her. Radiant stared in disbelief. Aveline, what did you do? She turned to him, her voice low and distant. I didn't do anything. It just happened. Around them, the forest went silent. Even the wind seemed to bow. She had just done something that no wolf or alpha had ever done. She had turned death itself away. But power always demands a price. When the light faded, Evelyn collapsed to her knees, gasping. Her veins pulsed gold, her body trembling as though something inside her was breaking free. Radiant knelt beside her, cradling her face. Breathe, he urged. Stay with me. Her voice shook. It hurts. He pressed his forehead to hers, feeling the shared rhythm of their hearts thundering in unison. You're not alone, he whispered. But deep down he knew the truth. Their bond was killing her slowly. The alpha's power held inside her human body was too much to contain. Every time she used it, the strain grew worse. If I stop fighting it, will it stop hurting? He shook his head, voice breaking. If he stopped fighting, it will stop everything. He held her tighter as her breathing steadied, his fear hidden behind silence. That night, after the battle ended, Radiant stood beneath the moon alone. Blood streaked his skin, his eyes dark with guilt. Leora approached quietly from the shadows. She's changing faster. He didn't turn. I know. You can't keep this up. The bond is unnatural. If she dies, part of you will die with her. He finally looked at her, his gaze hollow. Then let it. She swallowed hard. You love her. I owe her my life. That's not love, Leora whispered. That's punishment. Radiant's eyes flared gold. Then let me be punished. He turned toward the forest, the night wind howling through the trees. Somewhere behind him, Aveline slept restlessly, her dreams filled with visions of silver fire and crimson skies. The prophecy whispered through her mind like a warning. Two hearts bound as one cannot beat forever. The morning after the attack, the forest was cloaked in silence. Not peace, silence born of fear. Smoke still curled from the ground where silver had burned through soil and bone. Aveline stood by the riverbank, her reflection shifting between gold and shadow. Her eyes, those strange golden eyes, no longer belonged to the girl she once was. When she blinked, the air shimmered faintly around her, as though reality itself was bending to her heartbeat. Radiant approached quietly, his armor still bloodstained. You saved us again, he said. She didn't turn. Did I? She murmured. Or did I curse us all? He hesitated, his hand twitching toward her shoulder. You did what you had to. She met his gaze, her voice trembling. It's changing me, Radiant. I can feel it. He looked away, jaw tight. Then we'll find a way to stop it. But even as he spoke, he wasn't sure he believed it. The bond pulsed between them, a thread of gold and agony neither could escape. Later that day, Leora returned from the archives beneath the high hall, clutching a tattered scroll. I found something, she said, her voice low. She spread the parchment across the table, the old ink shimmering faintly in the candlelight. The prophecy of two hearts, she whispered. The words were ancient, written in the language of the first wolves. Radiant's eyes narrowed. Prophecy? Leora nodded. It speaks of an alpha whose blood will bind with an omega's, creating a being neither mortal nor beast, a heart that beats twice, bound by love and doom. Aveline's breath caught. Bound by doom? Leora's expression darkened. The prophecy warns that if the bond isn't broken before the blood moon rises, one heart will devour the other. Silence filled the room. Rydian clenched his fists. Then we'll find a way to change fate. Leora shook her head. Fate doesn't change, Your Majesty. It consumes. That night, the air grew heavy with unease. Aveline sat by the fire, her fingers tracing the veins glowing faintly beneath her skin. What if she's right? She whispered. Rydian crouched beside her, his hand brushing hers. I don't care about prophecies, he said. I only care about you. And if I'm the one meant to destroy you? She asked quietly. He met her gaze, unflinching. Then I'll die knowing I loved you first. His words trembled in the silence, and something inside her cracked. She leaned into him, their hearts beating as one. The bond pulsed between them, beautiful, dangerous, alive. But as the firelight flickered, she saw something flicker in his eyes too. Fear, buried deep but real. The prophecy had taken root in both their hearts, and neither could ignore it anymore. Meanwhile, in the shadows beyond the camp, the council gathered again. Elder Varric's patience had finally burned out. The girl must die, he hissed, before the blood moon. If you kill her, you'll kill the king, Leora argued. Their hearts are linked. Then we'll find another way, Varric said coldly. A spell, perhaps, or a blade forged from pure silver. The others nodded grimly. The rebellion was no longer whispered. It was being built. Varric's eyes gleamed with malice. He may be alpha, but I am not without power. If he won't protect the pack from her, we will. Outside the tent, a guard listened silently, his face unreadable. When the meeting ended, he slipped away into the night, toward the healer's hut. He would not betray his king. Not tonight. When dawn came, Aveline woke with a scream. Flames danced at her fingertips, her body trembling with uncontrollable energy. Rydian rushed to her side, gripping her wrist. Breathe, he commanded. She gasped, her eyes glowing gold, the room quaking around them. I can't stop it, she cried. Leora burst in, clutching a pendant etched with runes. Focus on me, she shouted. Anchor yourself. Aveline's power surged, the wall shaking, the fire roaring higher. Then suddenly it stopped. Smoke filled the air, and Aveline collapsed, unconscious. Rydian caught her before she fell, his breath ragged. She's getting stronger, Leora whispered, pale. And if the prophecy is true, soon one of you won't survive it. Rydian looked down at Aveline's still face, his heart breaking. Then I'll make sure it's me, he said quietly. And outside, the first sliver of the blood moon began to rise. The night air shimmered red beneath the rising moon, staining the forest in shades of fire and sorrow. Every wolf in the territory felt it, the tremor that shook their bones, the scent of destiny burning through the trees. Aveline woke gasping, her pulse thrumming with something not her own. Her body ached with new strength, her veins burned like molten silver. It's starting, Leora whispered beside her, eyes wide with terror. Outside, the howls began, low, mournful, desperate. The blood moon had risen, and with it, the prophecy. Aveline stumbled to her feet, clutching her chest. It feels like something's trying to pull me apart. Rydian stood by the doorway, his expression carved in stone. It's the bond, he said. It's merging. He stepped closer, but the air between them crackled violently. Sparks danced along his fingertips. Rydian, she warned. Don't. He ignored her and reached out anyway, only to be thrown back by an invisible force. He hit the wall hard, gasping for breath. You can't touch me, she whispered, horrified. Not while it's feeding. Across the kingdom, chaos spread. Wolves collapsed mid-hunt, feeling their alpha's energy twist in ways they didn't understand. The healers couldn't explain it. The elders refused to speak of it. And deep within the sacred woods, the silver pools began to boil. This has happened before, Elder Varric said grimly, staring into the flames, when love defied the order of nature. You mean, another elder began, but Varric cut him off. Enough. Gather the hunters. Tonight we end this. His voice carried the weight of final judgment. Meanwhile, the loyal guard who had overheard the council's plans crept through the shadows, racing toward the king's camp. He arrived bloodied and breathless. They're coming, he gasped. Half the council, armed with silver. Ridian's jaw tightened. Then they'll die with it in their hands. But Aveline caught his wrist. No, she said. If you fight them, the bond will kill you. It's too unstable. He looked into her eyes, those burning golden eyes, and whispered, Then we'll die together. The storm broke before midnight. Thunder rolled like drums of war. Silver arrows rained from the trees, slicing through tents and shields. The pack scattered, torn between loyalty and fear. Ridian roared, shifting mid-stride, his black wolf form tearing through the battlefield with terrifying grace. His claws shredded silver blades, his eyes glowing red beneath the blood moon's light. But every strike, every wound he took, Aveline felt too. She screamed, collapsing as her skin split with glowing cracks. She's linked, Leora shouted. If he dies, she dies. She pressed her hands to Aveline's chest, whispering ancient words of balance. Aveline's body arched, her breath ragged. You can't save both, Leora cried, tears streaming. But Aveline's voice rose through the chaos, trembling but fierce. I won't let him fall, not for me. She staggered to her feet, blood and light spilling from her palms, and walked into the storm. When the smoke cleared, the battlefield burned red beneath the moon. Bodies lay strewn across the clearing, wolves, rebels, friends. Aveline found Ridian on his knees, his fur matted with blood, silver lodged deep in his shoulder. She fell beside him, pressing her hands to the wound. Stay with me, she whispered. He coughed, his human form returning, eyes half-lidded. You shouldn't have come. I'm your alpha, she said, her voice breaking. You're my heart. Light burst from her hands, gold, blinding, divine. The silver hissed and melted between them. But as the light faded, so did her strength. Ridian caught her before she hit the ground. Aveline, no, stay with me. Her breathing slowed. It's taking too much, Leora shouted from behind them. She's given you her life. Ridian's voice broke as he whispered her name again and again, but she didn't stir. Then, just before dawn, something impossible happened. The blood moon sunk below the horizon, and Aveline opened her eyes. The golden glow had vanished, replaced by something softer, human again. What happened? She murmured weakly. Ridian held her close, his tears falling freely. You broke it, he whispered. The prophecy, it's gone. But Leora stood apart, her expression grave. No, she said, it isn't gone. It's only changed. She turned toward the dark forest, where the last of the smoke drifted upward, and far in the distance, two faint lights burned in the trees. The moon doesn't forgive broken fate. It rewrites it. Ridian looked down at Aveline, her pulse faint but steady, and a chill ran through him. Something had shifted in the balance of their world, and this time, it wasn't just destiny watching them. It was the moon itself. The dawn after the blood moon was too quiet. The forest, usually alive with the rustle of leaves and the distant calls of wolves, held its breath. Aveline sat near the dying fire, wrapped in a blanket, her skin pale but glowing faintly beneath the surface, like something golden still lived inside her veins. Ridian hadn't slept. He watched her, half in awe, half in fear. You shouldn't be alive, Laura murmured, kneeling beside her. The prophecy said one heart must devour the other. Aveline looked at her trembling hands. Maybe it did, she whispered. Ridian's head snapped toward her. Don't say that. But even as he spoke, he saw it. The faint pulse under her collarbone, too strong, too fast. It matched his heartbeat exactly. Their bond hadn't been broken. It had deepened, fused into something unnatural. "You're not dying," he said, voice low. "You're changing." Her golden eyes flickered up to meet his. "And if the change means I become something that kills you—" Silence. Then he whispered, "Then I'll face it. You saved me once. Let me save you now." But deep down, both knew this wasn't salvation. It was the start of something far darker. By midday, the survivors buried their dead. The sky hung heavy with gray clouds, and the scent of blood lingered. When they returned to camp, they found Elder Varric tied to a post, beaten, captured by the loyal guards. Ridian approached him slowly. "You raised your blade against your king. You conspired to kill the healer." Varric smiled, blood on his teeth. "And yet she lives. Tell me, Alpha, does she still bleed like a human?" Ridian's jaw clenched. "What are you saying?" Varric's eyes gleamed. "I saw her rise from death. That's not life, Ridian. That's hunger." He looked at Aveline, boundless hatred in his gaze. "The prophecy said the heart that survives will consume the other. Look at her. She's already feeding on you." Laura stepped forward, fury sparking in her eyes. "Enough!" she shouted, but her voice trembled, because deep down she'd seen it too. How the wounds Ridian took were now healing faster than ever, and how Aveline's eyes flickered red whenever his blood was near. That night, as the pack slept, Aveline woke gasping. The scent of blood was everywhere. Ridian's, hers, the earth's. She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the rhythm of two hearts pounding inside her. Her skin burned. Her teeth ached. "No," she whispered. "Not this." She stumbled from the tent, falling to her knees in the mud. Her reflection shimmered in a puddle, her eyes glowing crimson gold, her veins laced with fire. She heard footsteps. Aveline. Ridian's voice was soft, worried. "Are you all right?" She shook her head, trembling. "Stay back." He approached anyway, kneeling before her. "You're in pain. Let me—" She looked up, her voice breaking. "I can hear it." "Hear what?" "Your heartbeat." Her breath hitched. "And it's calling to me." He froze as her pupils dilated, fangs glinting faintly in the moonlight. She backed away, shaking her head. "Get away from me, Ridian. Please." But the hunger, the strange burning hunger, wouldn't stop. She could taste him in the air. Ridian didn't move. "If this is what fate made you, then I'll still love you through it." "You don't understand." "I'm not me anymore." She clutched her chest, the mark of the bond blazing like fire. "I can feel you dying inside me." And then her control shattered. She lunged, not as a woman, but as something else, something divine and monstrous. Ridian caught her, holding her wrists even as her claws cut into his skin. "Fight it," he shouted. "You're stronger than the curse." She screamed, trying to pull away, but the bond between them held her fast. Light burst from their joined hands, flooding the clearing with gold. For a heartbeat, everything went still. The fire, the wind, even the moon. Then the light collapsed inward, throwing them both to the ground. When it cleared, Aveline was on her knees, sobbing, and Ridian lay motionless beside her. "No," she whispered. "Not again." She pressed her hands to her chest. "Nothing." "Please," she breathed. "Please come back." Her tears fell on his skin, and the moment they touched him, his eyes opened. But they weren't his eyes. Leora arrived seconds later, drawn by the flash of light. What she saw froze her blood. Ridian stood slowly, his wounds gone, his aura radiating gold and shadow.
Aveline was trembling before him, her eyes wide with horror. "What did you do?" she whispered. Aveline shook her head. "I didn't mean to." Rydian turned toward them, his voice deeper now, echoing with something ancient. The prophecy was never about death. It was about merging. He looked at Aveline, a faint smile curving his lips. "We're one now." She stumbled backward, shaking her head. "No, that's not possible." But his gaze burned into hers, tender and terrifying all at once. "You gave me your heart, and now it beats in both of us." The wind howled through the clearing, carrying the scents of ash and rain. For the first time in centuries, the forest itself seemed afraid, and as the firelight flickered against their fused shadows, Leora whispered the truth no one wanted to speak. The prophecy wasn't a warning. It was a beginning. By morning, the world itself seemed different. The birds did not sing. The wind refused to move through the trees. Even the river that once whispered behind the Alpha's hall now flowed in eerie silence. Leora stood at the edge of camp, watching as the mist thickened around the forest. Something ancient had awakened, something that breathed through Aveline and Rydian now. They stood together before the ruins of the fire pit, hands entwined, their eyes gleaming with a shared light. Gold and black, life and death. "I can feel everything," Rydian whispered, voice trembling with awe. "Every heartbeat in the forest, every root beneath the soil." Aveline nodded, her expression unreadable. "It's not just power," she said softly. "It's hunger. It wants balance." "Balance?" he repeated. "Between what?" Her eyes shifted toward the rising sun. "Between love and ruin." She turned toward him, voice breaking. "Rydian, I think we've become what the gods tried to destroy." He reached for her face, but the air shimmered. His touch burned like light. The world had stopped recognizing them as wolf or human. They were becoming something else entirely. Word spread across the realm faster than fire. Packs from distant mountains fled their territories, claiming to have seen the sky bleed gold during the night. Hunters abandoned their posts. The council's remaining elders gathered in the Temple of Stone, faces grim. "The prophecy has fulfilled itself," one whispered. "The heart has devoured and risen." Elder Varric's second in command slammed his staff against the ground. "Then we must destroy them before the curse spreads." "Destroy the Alpha King?" another scoffed. "He is the curse now. Strike him and you strike fate itself." But among them, a younger priestess stepped forward, her eyes burning with conviction. "There is one way. The shadow bond can be undone, but only if the two who share it are torn apart under the next eclipse." The elders murmured. The blood moon had passed, but in 7 days the eclipse of ashes would fall, marking the end of the cycle. The priestess bowed her head. "If they remain one when that shadow falls, the world will kneel to them, or burn beneath them." Back at the camp, Aveline watched Rydian train with his remaining guards. He moved faster now, stronger, every strike blurring through the air like wind. But when one of the guards grazed his arm, silver didn't burn him. It turned to dust on contact. "You can't be hurt anymore," she murmured. He glanced up at her, sweat glistening on his chest. "You can't neither," he said. But his tone wasn't proud. It was hollow. "We've lost what made us mortal, Aveline." She walked closer, fingers brushing the mark on her neck. "Maybe mortality was the curse." "No," he said quietly. "Mortality was the gift. It's what made love mean something." The words hit her harder than any wound. She turned away, whispering, "Then what does that make us now?" He didn't answer. The air shimmered faintly between them, the bond pulsing like a second heartbeat. She felt his pain, his longing, his fear, everything, all at once. It was too much. "I can't keep feeling you like this. It's like drowning." "And if we break it?" he asked softly. She met his gaze. Then one of us dies. That night, Aveline dreamed of fire. She stood in a field of ash, the moon above her split in two. From the horizon came whispers, thousands of voices calling her name. When she turned, she saw herself, but not as she was. This version of her wore a crown of thorns, her golden eyes gone black. "You can't save him," the shadow version said. "You'll consume him before the dawn." "No," Aveline whispered. "I'll find another way." The shadows smiled cruelly. "There is no other way. You are the bond. You are the end." When she woke, her pillow was soaked with tears, and in her hand was a fragment of something dark and solid. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat trapped in stone. Leora examined it later, horrified. This is part of your soul. You're splintering." Aveline stared at the fragment, her voice trembling. "Then what happens when I break completely?" Leora swallowed hard. "You won't just die, Aveline. You'll take him, and everything bound to him with you." As the first storm clouds gathered, Rydian stood alone on the cliffs overlooking the valley. His senses stretched for miles. The forest whispered, the rivers sang, but beneath it all was one steady pulse, Aveline's. He could feel her fear like a knife in his ribs. "You're keeping something from me. The dreams, the pain, the stone." She hesitated, then handed him the fragment. It pulsed faintly in his palm. "It's my soul, and it's breaking." Rydian stared at it, his expression torn between fury and despair. "Then I'll share the weight," he said. "We'll carry it together." But when he tried to crush it in his fist, it cut into his palm, drawing black blood that hissed against the ground. The stone absorbed it and began to glow. Aveline's breath caught. "What did you do?" The wind roared, suddenly whipping around them, the sky darkening to crimson. Far in the distance, lightning split the mountains in two. Leora's voice carried faintly from the valley below. "The eclipse! It's coming early!" Aveline turned toward Rydian, terror in her eyes. The bond between them burned like fire. "We've run out of time," she whispered.
The sky turned crimson long before the moon appeared. Winds tore through the valley like angry spirits, bending trees and scattering ash from old fires. The wolves gathered near the temple ruins, their eyes reflecting fear more than loyalty. Above them, the sun bled into darkness. The eclipse of ashes had come early, swallowing light and reason alike. Leora stood at the cliff's edge, her robes whipping in the storm. "It's too soon," she whispered. "The gods aren't ready for this." Behind her, Aveline clutched her chest, feeling the bond pulse so violently she could hardly breathe. Rydian stood beside her, his jaw set, the air around him flickering gold in shadow. "It's not the gods," he said. "It's us." When Aveline looked up, the moon was no longer white. It glowed black, rimmed in fire. Every heartbeat between them grew louder, until the air itself seemed to pulse in rhythm. Then, from the forest's edge, horns sounded. The council's forces had arrived, armed with silver and runes that glowed like dying stars. The final reckoning had come. The council's warriors surrounded them, hundreds strong, led by the same priestess who had foretold their end. She raised a silver staff, her voice echoing through the storm. "By order of the ancient moon, the shadow bond must be undone." Her words rippled through the ground like thunder. Rydian's eyes blazed red. "You'll have to kill me first." "That," she said coldly, "is the plan." Arrows loosed through the air, streaking like meteors. Rydian shifted, his wolf form larger than any the pack had seen before, black as night, crowned in fire. He tore through the front lines, but every wound he inflicted appeared on Aveline's skin. She screamed, dropping to her knees as cuts split open across her body. "Stop," she cried, blood staining the earth. "If you kill them, you kill me." But he couldn't hear her, not anymore. The bond had consumed his reason, turning love into something primal and blind. Leora rushed forward, weaving a spell of protection around Aveline, but even magic strained under the pressure. "He's fading," she shouted. "He's becoming what the prophecy feared." Lightning split the sky, striking the temple ruins. The priestess raised her staff again, chanting words older than the mountains. "Let light devour shadow, and shadow devour light." A circle of energy erupted around Aveline, trapping her in a cage of burning silver. She screamed as it seared her flesh, her power flaring wildly in response. The ground cracked open beneath her, golden fire spilling out like liquid dawn. Rydian turned, hearing her cry, and charged toward her, but the spell hurled him backward, slamming him into the earth. The priestess stepped closer, her eyes full of sorrow. "I don't do this out of hate, child. I do this to save the world." Aveline's voice broke. "There is no world without him." Her hands blazed, golden light bursting through the cage. The priestess stumbled, shielding her eyes. "Impossible!" Aveline rose, the chains melting off her wrists. Her voice was both human and divine as she whispered, "You can't kill what was never meant to die." And with that, the entire field erupted in light. When the light faded, silence reigned. The battlefield was a crater of molten stone and smoldering trees. The council's soldiers lay scattered, alive but trembling. At the center of the destruction stood Aveline, untouched, her golden eyes glowing like twin suns. Rydian lay at her feet, unmoving, his body flickering between human and wolf. "No," she whispered, falling beside him. "Not again." She pressed her hands to his chest, pouring what little energy she had left into him. "Don't leave me, Rydian, please." But this time, he didn't respond. His pulse was gone. The bond between them, the one that had defied prophecy and death, fell silent. Leora fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "The gods took him," she whispered. "They took him to balance the bond." Aveline shook her head. "No. The gods don't take. They test." She kissed Rydian's forehead, her tears glowing gold as they touched his skin. "If fate demands a heart, then it can have mine." And before anyone could stop her, she plunged her hand into her own chest. The scream that followed shook heaven itself. Aveline's body collapsed beside Rydian's, her hand still pressed over his heart. The eclipse above flickered, as if even the cosmos flinched. Then, in the stillness, Rydian's body shuddered, and a second heartbeat began to echo through the valley. His eyes opened, no longer red, no longer gold, something new, something both. He sat up slowly, his breath trembling. "Aveline." But she didn't answer. Her body lay still, peaceful, empty. Leora wept silently as the eclipse faded into dawn. Rydian gathered Aveline into his arms, his tears falling on her cold skin. "You promised," he whispered brokenly. "You promised we'd survive this." The first rays of sunlight fell upon them, turning their bodies into silhouettes against the ash. In that moment, he understood the prophecy's final truth. One heart would devour the other. One would live. One would remain forever bound. And though she was gone, her heartbeat still echoed within him. Not as magic, not as curse, but as love that refused to die. Dawn crept over the valley like a wounded god, limping across a battlefield of ashes and broken vows. Smoke curled upward in pale ribbons, carrying the scent of blood, burnt earth, and something sacred. Rydian sat motionless, cradling Aveline's lifeless body against his chest. Her skin had already begun to cool, her golden hair streaked with soot and tears. Around them, wolves knelt in silent mourning, the air thick with grief and disbelief. The war had ended, but victory felt hollow. Rydian pressed his forehead to hers, his breath shaking. I would have traded kingdoms, he whispered, if it meant one more heartbeat. But as his words faded into the wind, something stirred within him, a faint, rhythmic thrum beneath his ribs. It wasn't his own pulse, it was hers. At first, he thought it was madness, grief's cruel trick on a broken mind. But then her voice echoed faintly, not in his ears, but in the deepest corners of his soul. Don't cry for me, Rydian. He froze, his head snapping up, eyes darting to her still face. Aveline. The voice came again, softer now, yet undeniable. I'm here, inside you. You carry what's left of me. His breath hitched. No, that's not possible. It wasn't supposed to be, she whispered. But the bond chose differently. It refused to die, even when I did. Rydian clutched his chest as pain flared through him, not physical, but something deeper, spiritual. He saw flashes, her memories, her laughter, her fear, all pouring into him like light through shattered glass. Aveline, he whispered, tears burning his cheeks. What have you done? I gave you my heart, she said gently. Now live with it. Days passed like whispers. The valley slowly began to heal, but Rydian did not. He wandered through the ruins of the temple, haunted by her voice and the phantom warmth in his chest. Sometimes, when he closed his eyes, he could feel her heartbeat inside him, steady, defiant, alive. Leora found him there one night, kneeling by the altar where the eclipse had burned its mark into the stone. You haven't slept, she said quietly. He didn't answer. You hear her, don't you? He turned slowly, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. Every moment. She speaks to me, dreams with me. Leora stepped closer, her expression torn between awe and fear. Then the bond hasn't broken. It's evolving. Evolving, Rydian repeated bitterly. She's dead, Leora. Her soul is trapped in me like a ghost. Leora shook her head. No. She's guiding you toward something beyond death. Her eyes flicked to the altar. The prophecy spoke of rebirth, remember? When the heart of gold beats within the wolf of night, dawn will learn to live again. That night, Rydian dreamed. The world around him was neither night nor day, but a shimmering in-between, a realm of memory and magic. Aveline stood there barefoot on water that reflected stars instead of sky. She smiled, her expression soft and sad. You found me, or maybe I found you. He ran to her, but when he reached out, his hands passed through her like smoke. Tell me how to bring you back, he pleaded. She shook her head. You can't bring me back, Rydian. You can only follow where I've gone. Then I'll follow you into death, he swore. She frowned. That's not what love is. The water rippled beneath her feet, and images rose from its surface. Flashes of the temple, the council seal, the moon torn in half. There's a gate, she said softly, between realms. It opens once every century under the twin moons. If you find it, if you reach it, maybe we can be whole again. She stepped closer, her hand resting over his heart. But be warned, my love, every door of life requires a death to open. He woke gasping, her scent still in the air, the echo of her words ringing in his mind. By the next morning, Rydian had made his decision. He stood before the pack, his eyes burning with resolve. I'm going to find the Gate of Moons, and I'm going to bring her back. The elders protested, warning him of the dangers that lay beyond the veil, but he silenced them with a single growl. You don't understand, he said. She is my life. Without her, there's nothing left to save. Leora stepped forward, clutching a small obsidian charm. Then you won't go alone, she said, pressing it into her hand. This will guide you through the veil, but it will cost you something precious each time it's used. He nodded without hesitation. I've already lost everything that matters. The wind howled as he turned toward the mountains, where legend said the gate shimmered between shadows and light. The sun broke through the clouds for the first time since the eclipse, illuminating his path. As he disappeared into the horizon, Aveline's voice whispered one last time, soft, fierce, and full of love. Follow the light, my king. I'll be waiting at the edge of everything. The mountains rose like jagged bones against the twilight sky, their peaks veiled in mist and moonlight. Rydian's boots crunched over frost and gravel as he climbed higher, the air thinning with every step. The path to the gate was said to be cursed, guarded by shadows that fed on despair, but he pressed on, driven by something stronger than fear. In the silence of the peaks, he could hear her heart beat within his chest, faint but steady, guiding him like a compass. I'm coming, Aveline, he whispered, his voice lost to the wind. Behind him, the pack watched from the valley, torches flickering like fireflies. None dared follow. Legend said that any who sought the gate never returned. But Rydian was not any wolf. He was the Alpha King, with a human heart buried in his chest, a heart that refused to stop beating. As the twin moons rose in perfect alignment, the air around him shimmered. A thin line of silver light split the sky, descending like a curtain of stars. The gate had opened. Rydian fell to his knees, awe and terror colliding in his veins. The space before him rippled like water, revealing flashes of memory, faces he had lost, battles he had fought, promises he had broken. Evelyn's laughter echoed faintly, carried through the veil. Rydian, her voice called distant yet achingly real. The gate tests truth, not strength. You cannot pass if your heart carries lies. He swallowed hard. Then let it take everything but her. He stepped forward and the light engulfed him. Pain tore through his body like silver fire. Every sin, every wound, every moment of guilt came alive again. He saw himself standing over her fallen body, helpless as she bled. Why did you let me die? The voice accused. Not Aveline's, but his own conscience sharpened into cruelty. Because I was weak. Because I thought I could protect everyone. The world spun, and then silence. When the light dimmed, he found himself standing in a realm of endless twilight. The air glowed with a dull silver hue, neither day nor night, filled with drifting motes of light that pulsed like slow heartbeats. This was the between, where souls waited, lost between life and afterlife. Shapes moved in the fog, spirits of wolves long gone, some curious, others hostile. One stepped forward, a tall figure cloaked in feathers and bone. You are not welcome here, living one, it said, voice echoing like distant thunder. Rydian drew his blade, its edge glinting with moonlight. I seek the soul of Aveline of Valenwood. The figure laughed, a hollow, haunting sound. Many seek, few find. The dead belong to the wind, not to kings. Then I'll fight the wind, Rydian growled. The spirit's eyes flared red. Bold words for a man with another's heart beating inside him. That made him falter. You know about her? We know everything that crosses the veil, but every step you take here steals from your life. The longer you walk this land, the sooner you will die. Rydian gritted his teeth. Then let death chase me. I'm not leaving without her. He pressed deeper into the between, guided by whispers and memory. The ground turned to glass beneath his feet, reflecting skies filled with flickering stars. Each step revealed fragments of Aveline's past, her childhood laughter, her prayers whispered to the moon, the night she first saw him and smiled despite her fear. He followed those memories like breadcrumbs until he reached a vast silver lake. The surface rippled, and from its depths rose her reflection, soft, glowing, and heartbreakingly beautiful. Rydian, she said, her image trembling like water disturbed by wind. "You shouldn't have come." He stepped forward, falling to his knees. "You think I'd let eternity keep you from me?" She smiled sadly. "This place takes everything you bring. Your strength, your years, your light. If you stay, you'll fade too." He reached out, his hand hovering inches from her reflection. "Then we'll fade together." Her expression faltered. "That's not love," she whispered. "That's surrender." The water trembled again, and she began to sink back into its depths. "Find the bridge of stars," she said quickly. "It's the only way home." Then the lake went still, leaving only his reflection, haunted, desperate, determined. Ridian rose slowly, his vision dimming at the edges. His skin had grown pale, his breath shallow. The between was draining him, thread by thread. Yet he kept walking. The whispers grew louder now, turning into voices, some pleading, some mocking. "She's gone," they hissed. "You could have ruled 1,000 lifetimes. Instead, you chase a ghost." He ignored them. In the distance he saw a faint glow, an archway made of starlight, suspended over nothing. The bridge of stars. Each step toward it felt heavier, his body fighting to remain alive. When he finally reached it, the air pulsed with power. The bridge was narrow, woven from light itself, stretching into an abyss of shimmering mist. He hesitated, then heard her voice once more. Clear this time, and close. "One more step, my love." Ridian's eyes burned with tears. "I'm here," he whispered, stepping onto the bridge. The light flared beneath his feet, and the between began to collapse behind him. Spirits screamed, the air shattering like glass. He ran, his heart hammering, the bond burning in his chest like fire. The last thing he saw before the world vanished in white was Evelyn, standing at the far end of the bridge, smiling through her tears, whispering his name as he fell forward into the light. Light, endless, searing light. It pressed against Ridian's eyelids until he thought it might consume him whole. When he finally opened his eyes, he was standing in a place that defied logic. The sky above him burned gold and indigo, stars swirling in spirals that pulsed with living rhythm. Beneath his feet was not ground, but light, solid, luminous, alive. He had crossed the bridge of stars. Around him, a vast temple stood, carved from moonstone and shadow. It pulsed with power, the place between life and afterlife, where fates were rewritten. And at its heart stood Evelyn, not a spirit, not a memory. Her, flesh and blood, glowing faintly, her eyes wide with wonder. "Ridian," she breathed, stepping forward. The world seemed to hold its breath. He caught her in his arms, burying his face in her hair, trembling as he whispered her name again and again. "You're real," he said. "You're alive." She nodded, tears glimmering on her cheeks. "You shouldn't have followed me." He laughed weakly. "I told you, I'd chase you past the edge of forever." But as their hands clasped, the world around them began to fracture. The temple's walls shimmered and cracked like ice under heat. A voice filled the air, ancient and deep, echoing from every direction. "No living soul may cross into death and remain whole. One heart, one life, one must stay." Ridian turned toward the sound. A figure emerged from the golden mist, a being draped in starlight, its face hidden behind a veil of galaxies. "You are the Alpha King, bound by mortal law. Her time ended when the silver pierced her heart." Evelyn stepped forward, defiant. "But our bond refused to die." The being tilted its head. "Love is not stronger than death. It is only louder." Ridian snarled, his voice breaking. "Then take me.
Let her live. The entity paused. The exchange must be willing. She must choose it. Evelyn turned to him, her eyes wide with horror. No, she whispered, you can't. He cupped her face gently. It's the only way. You gave me your heart, now let me give it back. Evelyn shook her head, tears streaming freely. You think I want to live without you? That's not life, Rydian. It's torment. He smiled softly. Then let my torment buy your dawn. The entity raised its hand, and a beam of light shot between them, forming a shimmering seal of choice. The gate requires truth, it intoned. If he takes your place, his soul will fade, scattered among the stars. His name will be forgotten by time. Rydian didn't hesitate. Then remember her for both of us. Evelyn clutched his hand. Don't you dare, she pleaded. You taught me to fight, to never surrender. I'm not surrendering, he said quietly. I'm keeping my promise. Her sobs echoed through the vast chamber as the light intensified. Please, Rydian, there must be another way. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. There isn't. You once took a bullet meant for me. Now it's my turn. Her breath caught. I love you, she whispered. I know. That's why you'll live. Then he kissed her, softly, fiercely, as if sealing eternity between them. The bond inside him pulsed one last time, then shattered. The light consumed him. The temple erupted in a storm of silver fire. The entity raised its arms as Rydian's form dissolved into radiant dust, scattering like stars across the void. Evelyn screamed his name, her body trembling as energy surged through her veins. The veil between realms tore open, flooding her with warmth, pain, and memory. She saw everything, his childhood, his burdens, the moment he first looked at her and saw not a servant, but a soul. His love didn't fade, it rewove itself into her, anchoring her spirit back to the world of the living. When the light dimmed, Evelyn fell to her knees, gasping, clutching her chest. Her heart beat, steady, alive, whole. Around her, the temple of stars began to crumble, returning to mist. The voice of the entity faded with it. The price is paid. The bond endures. And then silence. Evelyn looked around desperately, but Rydian was gone. The only thing left of him was a single glowing feather drifting down from the air, black as night, tipped with silver. She caught it, pressing it to her heart as tears blurred her vision. You promised me forever, she whispered, and you kept it. When she opened her eyes again, she was back in the valley. The sun had just risen, painting the mountains gold. Wolves howled in the distance, the sound both mourning and reverent. The battlefield was gone, replaced by green shoots breaking through the earth. Life had returned. Leora ran toward her, eyes wide with disbelief. Evelyn? She gasped. Evelyn nodded, weakly, clutching the feather to her chest. He did it. He brought me back. Leora fell to her knees beside her. Where is he? Evelyn looked toward the sky, where the faint shimmer of the twin moons still lingered. He's everywhere now. The air, the light, the heartbeat of this land. The wind stirred, brushing her hair, carrying a voice she would know forever. I told you, little healer, I'd never let you die. Evelyn smiled through her tears, the feather glowing softly in her palm. She rose to her feet as dawn broke fully, her eyes blazing with purpose. Then I'll live for both of us, and I'll make this kingdom worthy of your sacrifice. The wolves howled again, their song rising with the sun, a hymn to the Alpha King who crossed death for love.
The dawn that followed Rydian's sacrifice was unlike any other. The valley, Once drenched in ash and blood, now shimmered with life. Trees that had withered during the war grew silver blossoms overnight, their petals glinting in the light like tiny mirrors of the twin moons. The wolves called it a miracle. Aveline knew it was him. Every whisper of wind, every rustle of leaves, every heartbeat beneath her heat, he was there, woven into the land he died to save. Yet her heart carried a strange ache. It wasn't emptiness, it was remembrance. The Alpha King was gone, and yet she could still feel his pulse echoing through her veins. At the edge of the valley stood the monument they had built, a towering stone wolf with eyes of obsidian, carved to watch over the land. Aveline stood before it, holding the silver-tipped feather close to her heart. "You gave your soul," she murmured, "and I'll give mine to your people." Months passed. Under her guidance, the kingdom began to heal. The council that had once sought to destroy her now bowed to her leadership. Leora stood at her side, steadfast and loyal, while the packs who had once been enemies now gathered under one banner, the banner of two hearts. Aveline reformed the laws, breaking the cruel hierarchies that had condemned Omegas to suffering. Strength, she told them, standing before the assembly, is not born of rank or blood, it's born of sacrifice. Her words rippled through the crowd like wildfire. From that day forward, every wolf wore a small feather of silver and black pinned to their cloaks, a symbol of unity, love, and loss. Yet every night, when the moonlight painted the world in silver, Aveline would stand on the temple balcony and whisper to the wind, "Are you proud of me?" And the breeze would always answer with the soft, familiar warmth. Always. But peace came with its own ghosts. One night, as the twin moons aligned once more, Aveline woke from a dream of fire and stars. She could feel his presence stronger than ever, not distant, but near, almost tangible. The air shimmered with faint light as she followed the pull through the forest. The trees bent as she passed, petals falling like snow. When she reached the clearing, she froze. The silver lake where Rydian had once taken his oath reflected two figures, not one. Her reflection stood beside his. He looked just as she remembered, fierce eyes, gentle smile, that same quiet strength that once terrified and comforted her. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "You lived," he replied, his voice soft as wind through the trees, "and you made this kingdom ours." She stepped closer, tears glimmering. Why now? Why come back? He smiled faintly. "Because you're ready to let go." The words pierced her, yet soothed her at once. She reached out, their hands meeting at the water's surface, a barrier between life and beyond. "Will I see you again?" she asked. "When the moons forget to rise," he said. "Until then, I'm everywhere you walk." Aveline fell to her knees, the reflection fading as dawn crept into the sky. But this time, there was no sorrow, only peace. She knew what she had to do. The next morning, she gathered the packs and declared a new age, the age of the twin hearts. Under this era, no wolf would be cast aside, no bond would be broken by status or fear. "We are one," she said to the gathered thousands. "One pack, one blood, one promise that love will never bow to death." The crowd roared, the sound shaking the valley like thunder. Aveline raised the silver feather high, its glow catching the sun, and for a brief moment, she swore she saw his shadow standing beside her, tall, proud, eternal. Leora wept openly, the entire pack kneeling in reverence. And when the wind swept across the land, it carried with it the faint,
wild sound of a wolf's howl, deep, resonant, alive. The Alpha King's spirit still guarded them. Years passed, but the legend never faded. Children grew up hearing the tale of the healer who loved her king beyond death, and the king who gave up eternity for her life. On quiet nights, when the moons hung low, the elders would point to the stars and say, "There, do you see them? The two brightest lights, those are their hearts, still watching over us." Aveline lived long, her reign marked by peace and unity. On the last night of her life, she walked once more to the Valley of Blossoms. The wind greeted her, warm and familiar. "It's time," she whispered. A glow surrounded her, and for a moment, the silver-tipped feather in her hand blazed like fire. Then, as dawn broke, her body faded into light, leaving only a trail of petals swirling upward into the sky. The wolves howled across the realm, their song rising to the heavens, and in the constellation above the valley, two new stars ignited, one gold, one silver, side by side, forever. The kingdom of two hearts had found its eternity.
Thank you for staying till the end. Please do well to like and subscribe to the channel, and also don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comment. It means a lot to me.